The day my daughter called my late wife's piano junk, something inside me broke. I stood frozen in the living room as two movers lifted the old upright piano that had been part of our family for over 30 years. Emily crossed her arms and said it was only taking up space and collecting dust. She couldn't understand why I looked so heartbroken. To her, it was just old furniture. To me, it was the last place where I could still close my eyes and hear my wife's laughter filling our home. If heartfelt family stories and life lessons mean something to you, I'd be grateful if you subscribe to Behind Dad. And before we continue, I'd like to mention that the pictures shown throughout this story are creative visual illustrations meant to help tell my memories. They are not real photographs from my family's life. I wanted to stop the movers. I wanted to tell them they were carrying away far more than a piano. That instrument had been where my wife, Linda, taught our daughter her first notes, where Christmas songs echoed through the house every December, and where she played softly during the final weeks of her illness because music was the only thing that still brought her peace. Every scratch on its wooden surface held a memory that money could never replace. Emily insisted she had already sold it online to make room for a home office. She said nobody played it anymore and that keeping it made no sense. I looked at her and realized she wasn't trying to hurt me. She simply didn't see what I saw. Grief had taught me that memories often become invisible to people who aren't carrying them. I quietly stepped aside as the movers rolled the piano toward the truck. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just watched the truck disappear down the street until it was completely out of sight. My house felt strangely empty after it left. That evening, while I was sitting alone with a cup of coffee, my phone suddenly started ringing over and over again. I almost ignored it. But when I finally answered, a nervous voice on the other end said, "Sir, I bought your wife's piano today, and I found something hidden inside that I think belongs to your family." For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The man on the phone introduced himself as Daniel. He apologized for calling so late, but he said he felt it was the right thing to do. After the movers delivered the piano to his home, he began cleaning years of dust from the inside before tuning it. While removing the old front panel, he noticed a small wooden compartment hidden deep behind the keys. It wasn't part of the original design. Someone had built it into the piano many years earlier. Inside was a faded envelope, a tiny velvet pouch, and a folded piece of paper with my wife's handwriting across the front. The moment he mentioned Linda's handwriting, my hands began to shake. Daniel asked if I could come over that evening. I drove there in complete silence, replaying every memory I had of my wife sitting at that piano. She had always smiled whenever she played, even during the hardest days of her illness. I suddenly remembered something she once said while gently closing the piano lid. She smiled and whispered, "One day, this piano will tell you something I couldn't say out loud." At the time, I laughed because I thought she was joking. Now those words echoed in my mind with a meaning I had never understood. When I arrived, Daniel welcomed me inside with kindness. The piano stood in the corner of his living room exactly as it had in my house only hours before. Resting on top of it was the envelope. I carefully picked it up, recognizing Linda's handwriting instantly. My eyes filled with tears before I even opened it. Daniel quietly stepped into the next room to give me privacy. I unfolded the letter, but before reading the first line, I noticed the small velvet pouch lying beside it. Curious, I opened it and found my wife's wedding ring inside. I froze. She had been buried wearing a different ring because she once told me her original wedding band had been lost years earlier. Suddenly, I realized she had never lost it at all. Then I looked back at the letter, knowing the truth waiting inside would change everything I believed about the final years of our marriage. I took a deep breath before unfolding the letter. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The first line brought tears to my eyes immediately. "My dearest James, if you're reading this, then the piano has finally found the person who truly loved it." I had to pause because I could almost hear Linda's voice. She wrote that she had hidden the letter years before her illness became serious. She knew there would come a day when the piano might leave our home, and she wanted it to carry one final message to me if that ever happened. As I kept reading, I discovered why she had hidden her original wedding ring. She admitted she never lost it. After her diagnosis, she secretly placed it inside the piano because she wanted it to become a reminder that love isn't measured by what we wear but by what we choose to protect. She worried I would sell the piano after she was gone to pay bills or because the memories became too painful. She wanted whoever found the hidden compartment to know that the instrument wasn't valuable because of money. It was valuable because it held our family's story. She ended the letter by asking me to forgive anyone who failed to understand that, especially Emily. She isn't trying to erase me, Linda wrote. She's simply carrying her grief differently than you are. By the time I reached the last page, I couldn't stop crying. Every bit of anger I had been holding toward my daughter began to disappear. I finally understood that Emily hadn't sold the piano because she didn't love her mother. She sold it because every time she walked past it, she was reminded of the day cancer took the strongest woman either of us had ever known. Just then, my phone rang. It was Emily. Her voice was breaking as she told me she had just learned the buyer had found something hidden inside the piano. She kept saying she was sorry and begged me to tell her what it was. I looked down at Linda's wedding ring resting in my hand. Then I remembered the final sentence of the letter. It wasn't written to me. It was written for our daughter, and I knew hearing those words would change her life forever. The next morning, Emily came to my house with tears already filling her eyes. She didn't say a word at first. She simply hugged me tighter than she had in years. We sat together at the kitchen table, and I placed Linda's wedding ring beside the letter. Emily stared at it in complete disbelief. "Mom's ring," she whispered. I thought it was lost forever. I gently shook my head and handed her the final page. She read every word through tears. In that last message, Linda told her, "If you're reading this, please don't blame yourself for letting go of the piano. Objects can leave a home, but love never does. The greatest gift you can give your father is not another piano. It's your time, your kindness, and your heart." Emily broke down crying. She admitted she had convinced herself that selling the piano would help both of us move forward. Instead, she realized she had tried to hide from grief instead of facing it. She apologized for making the decision without asking how I felt. I reached across the table and held her hand. I told her I wasn't angry anymore because her mother's words had reminded me that people don't always mourn in the same way. Sometimes one person holds onto memories, while another tries to escape them. Neither means the love was any less real. Later that afternoon, Daniel arrived with wonderful news. After hearing the entire story, he insisted on returning the piano to our family. He said some things were never meant to be bought or sold. Together, we carefully rolled it back into the same corner where it had stood for decades. For the first time since Linda passed away, Emily sat down on the bench and softly played the song her mother had taught her as a little girl. I closed my eyes, and for one beautiful moment, it felt like our family was together again. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments because your words may comfort someone carrying silent grief. Please share this story with someone who needs a reminder that love is stronger than loss. Thank you for spending this time with me on Behind Dad. Never measure the value of something by its price, because the most precious treasures in life are the memories that continue playing long after the music seems to end.